Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I'm very glad to be here today. So just to give you a bit of an overview, we've got a session today which is about Crypto Queen's reimagined future. So we're going to be looking at the token economy from, say, a gender lens perspective. And just to give you a bit of an insight here. So many women tech leaders do see the crypto and DeFi industry as a new space, an opportunity to close the gender gap and create an inclusive environment that allows tech leaders and creators to actively engage in this space. Much of it remains a work in process. The promises of democratization, open access, transparency, predictability, and systemic resilience is an allure that is fast becoming a reality, which is empowering female tech leaders of the industry to have a stronger voice. So in this panel session, we're going to speak to a few of these women to get an understanding from them, what's their perspective in terms of what is next in this industry. Just very quickly, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Leah Butler. I'm the director of Envasis. We're an advisory and investing firm that's very much focused on Web3, NFTs, metaverse, and play-to-earn gaming. I also write a regular opinion column for CoinDesk, and you might remember me as the writer and narrator and host of the Play to Earn documentary, which was all about the rise of NFT gaming in the Philippines. But enough about me. I'd love to throw over to our speakers so they can just briefly introduce themselves. Lucy, did you want to kick us off and tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone, and thrilled to be at this conference. Well, thank you for the introduction. I am indeed the founder of Token Bay Capital. So Token Bay Capital is an early stage venture fund that invests in the digital assets and blockchain space. So we invest in both equities and tokens, and really sort of supporting all these highly exciting new companies that are out there building Web3 and the new infrastructure for our new blockchain-based token economy. I also have founded Women in Crypto, which is a group of industry leaders within the crypto space in Hong Kong, but also across Asia. And I'm also a board member of the FinTech Association of Hong Kong, which looks to create advocacy and more education around all the FinTech developments happening in Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lucy. What about you, Natasha? Would you like to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. My name is Natasha Bansgopaul, and I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer at VegaX Holdings. At VegaX, we're a crypto infrastructure platform. And essentially what that means is we build the technological infrastructure to help traditional investors and traditional institutions enter into the digital asset market in a meaningful way, in an efficient way, and in a very lucrative way. And that's what we're building at VegaX. I'm also a White House Presidential Innovation Fellow, detailed to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, where I lead AI transparency and bias research. And I'm thrilled to be here today to connect and talk about where women have more of a place to play in the crypto economy and the future of digital assets.
That's awesome. Thanks, Natasha. And Vivien, my very good friend, I'm excited to be on a panel with you. We've known each other for a few years now. But for anyone who hasn't met you, perhaps you could give us a little bit of an intro.
Sure, happy to. I'm very excited to be here with our esteemed panel members, actually, Lucy, Leah, and friends of mine. So right now I'm running Asia Crypto Alliance, which is an industry association. So I think that's kind of advocating interface between the VASPs and the regulators and authorities, and hoping to build a sustainable ecosystem for the VASP in Asia. And I'm also a senior advisor for SatoshiWomen. They're a global advisory company, but very interested in sort of crypto portfolios and products. Actually just announced yesterday, the ex-financial secretary of Hong Kong has joined SatoshiWomen as well as an advisor. So very excited to be building out, what SatoshiWomen has in the crypto space and in the Web3 world. And also from, I guess, a gender equality, diversity perspective, I co-founded a group, SatoshiWomen, with another lady called Lindane. So we've been doing really fun and exciting things on that. And I also actually have another group called Web3 Women, which hopefully is starting, but trying to bring more traditional finance women into the Web3 and, to groom ladies who have aspiration in their career. So I would stop talking about myself and then I think pass it back to you, Leah, so that we can get into the interesting discussion today.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Vivien. And I want to come back to that later, actually, and learn a little bit more about how you're achieving that. But let's come back to you, Lucy. I just want to say I've got some questions that are prepared for each of you, but if anyone wants to jump in at any time and add some more thoughts, please do. I think these sessions are a lot of fun when we can have a bit more of an open conversation. But Lucy, you did mention that Token Bay Capital is invested in a number of firms that are making a mark in the Web3 space. And, we're seeing that the dawn of the metaverse is upon us. But closing that gender gap in that space is still sort of a bit of a work in progress. But I wanted to talk about, I guess, an interesting concept around pseudonymity. So in the Web3 space, people are really embracing this idea of being able to live with a pseudonym in place of, say, your real face or your real name. How are you seeing that this could actually impact the space from a gender perspective? Do you think this is going to accelerate or slow down progress towards closing the gender gap? And do you think that pseudonymity could potentially even create a more inclusive space?
I love this question because actually I'm having so many debates with people at the moment just on this very concept. It's really sort of dividing the room, I would say. And actually to hear different viewpoints on it, I think really at the core of that question is that the metaverse is giving more choice. And if you want to go in as like the most female avatar you could possibly imagine, you could do that, but you can also do that as a man. Or as a female, if you actually want to be very neutral and sort of experience interactions with people, gender neutral, that is really exciting, right? Sort of it's taking society and how we interact with each other in very new directions. And I think, the views that we have around the world in terms of what's everyone's view, we all have to be very cognizant of what people's pronouns and how they want to be referred to, how they view themselves. And actually, we might see the metaverse as a forum to sort of take this idea a little bit further and see where it can go. So I think people are going to, make a choice. Some women are going to want to go as women as themselves. I personally would probably want to be an improved Lucy in the metaverse, stay as myself. But, the other interesting discussion that came up actually in recent conversations I was having is that there have been instances where as a female, you've been, I don't know what the right word is, but a metaverse sort of attack, if you like, by one female was then approached by sort of 5 or 6 male avatars, which is an extraordinary situation. And that was very uncomfortable for the woman in question. And she's actually complained and had a voice and said, this can't happen. Do we need to apply new regulations on this to the metaverse? Because right now it is a completely unregulated free-for-all space. So I think questions like that are pretty interesting. If it's underage participants, that is maybe something that you're not as well equipped to deal with, right? Anyone else would say, well, just take your VR off and don't interact. But actually, if you're younger, that might affect you. And I think it sort of takes us back to the beginning of the internet and still problems that plague the internet today. How do we police interactions? Are participants able to sort of understand who the person is actually behind that avatar? So I think there are many layers to this. I think it's going to be endless discussion about the pros and cons, and hopefully collectively as society we'll get to a point which is, a safe and inclusive environment, and that the blockchain will do its job and weed out, bad actors.
Yeah, it's a really sort of interesting dichotomy, isn't it? Because I think you can see that if people aren't necessarily tied to their, their usual physical persona, the gender that they were born into, or even, the geography that they live in, if you can kind of smash those traditional boundaries, it can be extremely empowering. But at the same time, some people might actually look to hide behind that different pseudonym that isn't necessarily tied to their real world self. So there's a lot of ethical questions there. I'm not sure if Natasha or Vivien, if you wanted to add anything to those ideas, please feel free. Maybe not. We can move on to the next one. Actually, just as a follow-up question, Lucy, we were sort of talking about pseudonyms. I guess it's interesting because we're seeing people represent themselves in all sorts of different ways, whether they have a Bored Ape as their pseudonym, or they might have an Axie, which is one of the creatures from the game Axie Infinity, which is a blockchain game. They could have a robot or an alien or a dragon. You kind of have no idea who is behind this, wonderful creature. But, how do you think that real world groups can be represented fairly? For example, like some people are talking about, should we ensure that we have enough female personas in generative NFT projects? Or, for example, you might even have, ensuring that we have enough ethnic representation throughout NFT projects. Any thoughts on that? Because it's a kind of a weird space right now. We're rebuilding the future from the ground up. Do we necessarily have to follow what we would see in the real world, or could it be something completely new?
I mean, I do think this whole movement, the true metaverse, I mean, obviously we can talk about the distinction between a metaverse that's owned by the users and creators of the metaverse, so very natively Web3, and the metaverse that's driven more by Web2 sort of software as a service type platforms that sort of create a bit more of an artificial environment, and you can take it or leave it. I think for the first iteration of the metaverse, which is the one I'm most interested in, which is the native Web3 metaverse, it's going to be an expression of the users and the creators. So all of our voices have a chance to be heard, and I would like to think that actually in this new forum, we will have a complete diversity that is actually in the real world population, because we'll be proud to project that in the metaverse. But what's so exciting about the metaverse is that we're going to be given equal opportunity, because we're building this from first principles from the ground up. So everybody really needs to rise up and take this opportunity. And I think, signs of where we're going, I mean, if you just look at the iconic NFT collections, so the CryptoPunks, World of Women, you see a whole range of ethnicities, hair color, everything, different self-expression. So I personally am very optimistic. I think it's also a whole movement being driven by the youth. And I think they're coming in with a very healthy new attitude to everything. So I'm very optimistic. I think this could be the great leveler for the world.
I love that. Okay, so we've started out in like a really philosophical place. But Natasha, I've got some questions for you just around the industry itself. So, I mean, we can look at how people are using pseudonym in terms of being a participant in this space, a user of these technologies. But, what about the people behind these projects that are actually building them? What kind of opportunities do you see for women in the blockchain industry, especially because it's such a nascent space? And, do you see more or less of a gender gap, say, as compared to other technology sectors?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great question. And I think the positive difficulty in answering this question is that we've seen so much change in the last couple of years, I think, for folks who have been in crypto and blockchain for some time. And even the last 3 years, I think, are quite telling. But even if you look at the last 5, they call it even 10, the significant inflows of women in this space and active women participation continues to increase. And I think that is indicative of a positive sign of how the industry is beginning to grow and continuing to grow. I'm cautiously optimistic in the sense that we still have a lot more to do, right? So this doesn't mean that we've solved all of the gender equality gaps and issues with crypto and blockchain, right? But what it has created is a very unique opportunity to kind of build on something that Lucy said in this opportunity of choice, right? You're now in this world where you exist as a number, right? And you exist as however you choose to bring yourself out to the world, right? Whether that be in the metaverse world, whether that be through the utilization of your wallets, whether that be through a .eth address, right? You're creating your own identity in a manner and making very specific choices about what that identity looks like. And as a result, you now have the opportunity to choose, which isn't necessarily an opportunity or a choice that women have had before, right? So the choice, or the empowered choice, to say, I want to be a woman who looks like a better Lucy, or I want to be a better me in the metaverse, or I want to be, me, whatever that choice may be, right? You now have that choice. So I think in general, what we're seeing is that there's opportunity here. And as crypto, to your point, in its nascency, as we continue to grow, that means that there is a lot of opportunity for learning. And what we're seeing here is that a lot of women are taking the steps to educate themselves and start to learn how to be a part of this industry and this economy. And that can look like a number of different ways. It can come to life in a number of different ways. And essentially, I'd like to say that we need more women in everything in the crypto world, probably except the world of trolls. We don't need any more crypto trolls, but we need everything else, right, in the world of crypto and blockchain. And particularly, women have the opportunity to really take charge, take initiative, continue to learn, figure out what parts of the industry are really exciting to you, and start carving out your niche and what that means to you in terms of participation, actively finding groups, and finding the communities of people who are also interested in building in the way that you're building. And what I'm optimistically hopeful with is that we're starting to see more of these communities pop up. Specifically for women who are actively building in this space, and for women who want to meet either women or people who are willing to work and help with women. So I think that there are a lot more networking opportunities that have also built up, simply because there have been women in this space who have also wished to have these opportunities. So as we also, as female leaders in the space, continue to build and grow, we're also able to help create some of these communities and participate a bit more actively to get people also more encouraged to enter and grow with us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were just talking too about the idea of education and the importance of that. I guess one of the things that I've personally seen, particularly in crypto, is it's really powerful to be able to lower the barriers to accessing some of these markets and allowing more people to come in and, you know, really learn from the get-go. I guess, you know, from your perspective, what sort of impact or empowerment can we see if women are investing in the crypto market? You know, is it a way for them to take control of their financial future? What kind of, I guess, benefits, but also risks exist for people who are new to this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So of course, nothing any of us have said or will say is financial advice or can be misconstrued as financial advice. That's my crypto disclaimer. But essentially, I think that what's happening here is one of the very few wealth generation opportunities are being presented to us. And what that means from both a community perspective and a gender perspective, in a sense of there's a unique opportunity here to learn and start to sharpen your tool set to become a bit more savvy about what's happening in this space and to start to learn where you may place calculated bets, right? So for those folks who are in the space or trying to get into the space, there's a lot of opportunity and also a lot of scamminess that's still a part of the industry. So for those reasons, what you hear all the time is DYOR, do your own research. And a lot of that is because part of crypto is kind of working through it. And part of that is going through the normal channels of the crypto world so that you can start to explore and understand how people are putting projects together, why they're putting projects together, and understanding what these communities are being built for. And I think that that's starting to actually provide people with more insights and more opportunities on where they can actually participate and actively grow. And I think as we continue to see women empower themselves by making calculated bets with their finances in crypto, whether that be just simply purchasing Bitcoin or Ethereum, or whether that be going into the degen world and staking and being into this DeFi world where you're actually figuring out other opportunities to gain better returns. There are all sorts of ways to make money and better and enhance returns versus the traditional market right now. But a lot of it has to do with understanding, one, your appetite for risk and understanding how these investment products are structured so that you can get a better understanding as to where the indicators are going for the future. And that's another thing that we do at VegaX. We make it very easy for people to understand what's happening in crypto so that as you start to get more complex crypto products, you have a bit more of a foundation and an understanding, which I think is going to be a key catalyst as female investors or any investors start to allocate even more capital or more of their portfolio towards crypto. We're going to start to see even more of these products pop up that are hopefully going to get people more excited and hopefully provide better returns for people as well.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot to navigate in this space, that's for sure. Really quick follow-up question. You just mentioned communities online and, in terms of where people go to get their information about crypto. I guess if we do have any crypto curious in the audience, it might help just to name a few of them, because I guess we're not sort of seeing crypto communities necessarily congregate around Facebook or Instagram. Where do you usually find those communities, Natasha?
Yeah, I think that you can find a lot of them. Well, what's happening now, especially for folks who are in this NFT world, you're finding a lot of this in the Discord space. So there are a lot of communities that are moving to Discord. The traditional crypto channel is Telegram. However, Telegram can get crazy fairly quickly, but people tend to use Telegram where there are a lot of groups there. A lot of groups that support projects are there. Discord is another one where you can find pretty much all of your favorite NFT products. Projects generally have Discord channels. And then Medium is also another great source. So VegaX has a resource blog there as well. BlockFi is also another great source. Misari Crypto is also another great source. So I think that there are quite a few that you can kind of do a few Google searches to find some top resources. But of course, there are other ones that are specific for specific groups. For example, I'm in one called Women of Color in Blockchain that exists both on Telegram and LinkedIn. And that group continues to grow. And again, it's about folks who are focused on the development space and are interested in building that community. So I think we're starting to see a lot more of these pop up. And you're starting to see a bit more of the footprint come to life, both through the Twitter sphere and I think the Discord world.
Yeah, I love that. And I think particularly in the spirit of decentralization, which really is one of the deepest held values of the blockchain community, it's so great to see all these smaller communities sort of splintering off and being able to find people who share the same kind of beliefs and goals and even challenges. So I really appreciate you sharing a little bit more about that. And since we're on the education thread, Vivien, I'd love to dig into a little bit more about what you were saying around SatoshiWomen. So we've already covered it's incredibly difficult to keep pace with everything that's happening in the world of Web3, from NFTs to DeFi and metaverse and so on. I mean, I work in this space full time and I still find it hard to keep up. So for someone who is new to it, I can imagine it is incredibly overwhelming. So with your group and as the co-founder of SatoshiWomen, I know that you are providing education, inspiration, and access so that more women can learn about this space. But how do you actually do that? How are you delivering on that mission?
Well, as you know, actually Web3 is all about community building. So I think people always ask, oh, so how do you decide what's going to, what next session you're going to run? To be honest, it's all on community feedback. So, and as you said, there's so much stuff that's happening. We're never going to be out of topic. So, we did crypto 101, NFT, somebody got hacked and then they now want like a security session. We did one on Luna. So it's just kind of ongoing, I think. And, people always think that I'm like the mother for everybody. So I, always want to get them protected because usually the questions they would ask is, what, and a bit like, what Natasha was saying, actually, they want to know actually, oh, I hear all these NFTs that's, gone up like 100 times. How do I get into the right one? But reality is you need to get into the basics of number one, how you don't get hacked, how you set up a MetaMask, all this basic stuff before you can really go into, should you be investing? And I always tell them, the only one question you need to ask yourself is, why are you doing this? So I think our group, and I'm sure there are a lot of other groups out there too, it's just a bit of a safe space that people have questions and then they don't sound stupid. Because funny enough, a lot of females just said, their husband, boyfriends, that they would ask these questions over dinners or drinks, and the response is usually, oh, you never understand. So I think they're intimidated, like as in they don't want to be raising these questions to sound stupid. But then in our group, or I'm sure in most female group, no question is really stupid. So I think the group is inclusive, as in, we have housewife, with people who sort of are gym trainers to artists, creatives. So I think that's a mixed pond. It's, to be honest, it's challenging to match, as in, because the sophistication level varies, but I think we're just right now, I mean, with COVID is difficult. So we've ran a few live events, mostly on Zoom, but we've had a lot of a lot of actually really nice people, as in they have, subject matter expertise. Hacks Trust came and talked about Luna, because I think they're the expert in the area. So I think we just organically build that. And I really like it that way, because I think it should be, inclusive, as in whatever direction or things that you want to know about, if there's somewhere or someone that actually who can help you sort of get there, or at least tell you. And even YouTube, there's so many resources. I think you're lost, as you said, as you get on. So I think it's just some guidance, I think, to the group. I think we help each other. People actually help us too in terms of planning our schedule, agenda. So I think that's been really helpful.
And what sort of feedback are you getting? Like, you were talking about how community feedback helps you pick the topics, but are the women who attend the sessions, are you finding that they build their confidence? So are they exploring more? Is it really impacting them in an effective way?
I'll be biased, but yes, I think they are. Because, and the other thing is, you really get to kind of go into a circle of people that you probably don't naturally tap onto, because some of these people are bankers, other, like, they're not technology people, so they might like NFTs, from an artist, but they don't actually know, like, okay, so how do I get access? So it's also a group that you build connections. I mean, I've done, Goldman was saying this, like, probably the most boring job for 19 years, like, in compliance. So I never had any interaction or interact with artists, or very few, creatives, food and beverage kind of marketplace people, looking at somebody a French guy who's doing a wine and whiskey like marketplace, and building like a sort of curating an experience for people who are interested to go to Michelin star and sort of vineyards. So not people that I would come across, if I was doing no job. So I think it's just interesting intersection for people to meet others, or female to meet others that they feel that they can trust and talk to and get some insights on. And I think the feedback, actually, it's, well, what next? Like, how are you guys going to scale? We're still very focused on how to expanding our education program to have impact, because right now it's very Asia focused. I mean, we're people from Europe, but I mean, it's because we all, me and Lyndon both have a day job, so I think limited capacity, but we'll love to, because we're getting ambassador in different regions. And also, I think hopefully we're doing something in the metaverse too, because I think the Web3 way of education is no longer, oh, we have to go to class and all whatnot. I mean, ideally, you're all in some sort of group or platform and you're instantly learning. So hopefully, we get to a place where people can be part of a broader community and people can just learn what they want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one more for you, Vivien, because I know that you're in a lot of different roles. You're chairing an industry association for virtual asset providers. You're on board advisory for digital companies. You're an investor yourself in different blockchain and crypto companies. So what opportunities do you see in increasing female participation in the Web3 world? And, how might that be different compared to, say, traditional finance and Web3?
I definitely see a lot of great opportunity, because everything that I do, I always have like, okay, how do I increase female participation, like at the back of, thinking of what I do. So I try to make use of, I mean, we're still early days, in the industry association, but I mean, in the longer run, we'd love to help them build some female internship program. There's one company that we're talking specifically to, like, can we help them run like even a smaller scale internship program just for female? Either they're already in Web3 or like bring younger people in. I think STEM education, Axie Infinity and, and all these different games, Roblox. I think we are actually really educating, I think females starting from very young. So they at least have an idea of, if they want to one day get into these kind of jobs of the world, actually, how do they do it? In what ways? Some playing games, other buying NFTs, maybe. We see actually teenager, actually like big investor or like doing fundraisers for NFTs, which is kind of really fascinating, exciting for me too. And then I think for the traditional finance guys, I see like right now, actually, there's a huge amount of institutional adoption. So the traditional space, definitely, I think the firms are going into Web3. So we're also looking at reverse mentoring program. Like, can we get the younger girls to actually do reverse mentoring for people who are in banks? So I think there are different cuts that you can do. I think if you are creative enough, which technically we're in the space we all should be, they're just way to like put the dots together to try to look at more holistically and make leverage of the different sort of parts of people and connection and resources.
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, I'm based in the Philippines, and I think that's one of the things that we saw, particularly with Web3 games like Axie Infinity. It just created this incredible on-ramps for people to get into this space that didn't exist before. Like, having been in crypto since sort of 2016, 2017, the amount of times that you were trying to get someone to download a wallet and learn how to use an exchange and do all these things. But when you flip that process on its head and say, here's a cute, fun game that you can earn crypto in, and then you've got crypto in a wallet that you've got to figure out how to cash out, it seems to have just really changed the game, excuse the pun, in terms of how people are learning to use these technologies. And that was the cool thing here in the Philippines. You know, we saw rural populations, you know, people who hadn't even had the chance to be able to finish their schooling, being able to use these incredibly complex crypto platforms. And the level of inclusion that we saw there, I think, just really blew everyone's minds. So that's definitely something that I'm excited about in Web3. We've only got less than 5 minutes left, and I am so impressed the breadth that we just covered in, you know, a half an hour discussion. We've gone from pseudonymity to on-ramps to STEM education. I mean, the whole thing. I'd just love to kind of bring it back to a place and hear some final thoughts from you in terms of your outlook on gender inclusion in this space, in both Web3 and Metaverse. Lucy, can I bring it back to you? What's your final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, in a word, I would say I'm really optimistic. I think this is going to be a great decade for women on many different levels. And I think this technology is going to be one of the core reasons why women are set to do really well. And so I'm super excited about it. I think that message is getting through. I think you know, the observations, no one knows because there's no sort of surveys being done on who's building out all these decentralized blockchains, right? No, there's no centralized data that can tell us the gender of everybody that's coding these new blockchains and getting involved in the build out. But, you know, even if it was more male heavy in its first iteration right at the beginning, I think, you know, back to earlier points, it's catching on very quickly, and women are not going to miss a trick on this one. And great work from you know, organizations like SatoshiWomen and many other of these women in crypto groups are popping up, which is fantastic. You know, the more the merrier to spread the message. I think what we do need to be careful of, given that we are seeing an intersection of crypto and finance. So we're moving to a world of crypto finance being led by DeFi and GameFi. We need to be careful we don't make the same mistakes we made with the traditional financial markets. You know, the hedge funds in the 80s, or the banks, the investment banks on those trading floors were incredibly heavily dominated by men, and the culture was actually very anti-female. You know, it wasn't just that it was male, it was actively anti-female. So hopefully we're not going to go there. The metaverse, I hope we do not see any sign of that attitude or culture from any participants. But I do believe in the empowering nature of the technology. I think it's a huge opportunity for women to embrace this. And what I would like to end on saying is why I think it's great for women is because of the flexibility that this new technology provides us with the way that we lead our social and our financial lives. All of a sudden, we can work from wherever we are in the world. We can work at whatever times, as many hours as we want per week, because it's going to become very much that you are rewarded in direct correlation to the amount of time and the amount of value you bring to any particular community in the metaverse or on blockchain. So that's very empowering. You know, for how long have women been stuck having to do FaceTime behind their desk in offices? And now they can multitask, as we're very good at doing. So I'm super optimistic, and I can't wait to see how this pans out.
Yeah, definitely resonate with what you were saying too about ensuring that we don't just make the same mistakes over and over again, and we do actually build new structures. Natasha, what about you? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I again echo Lucy's sentiment, because I'm actively always saying that we need folks to help us build this future, that want to help us take the best from the traditional world and optimize what we need to for the world of digital assets, because there is still a lot hitting mainstream media now, but we're still very much in the early stages. So I am excited about what the future has for women in crypto and women in blockchain and women in digital assets. I encourage everyone to learn as much as possible and ask questions. Join those groups, ask the questions that you think are dumb questions. Don't be afraid, because you are not the only one with those questions. It's probably not a dumb question, and other people need the answers too, and you'll be better off for it. So I encourage people to learn as much as possible, ask questions, and join groups to ask questions. There's power in numbers, and the more that you are joining these communities of people who are also interested in learning certain things, I think the easier it will become to absorb the information and to meet other people to help you and to help continue to push you as you learn more about this industry. And do your research and read as much as you can. So that's kind of those are my both exciting, my thoughts on the future and my cautionary tale as well. I'd also like to say I'm hiring at VegaX. So if you're interested in working in this world of digital assets and crypto, and you're a woman or not a woman, and you're interested in this space, we'd love to talk to you. We're actively hiring. info@vegaxholdings.com.
Awesome. That was a nice little plug at the end there. I hope you get some inquiries.
Me too.
And what about you, Vivien? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief, but I think I'll continue lobbying men to support us. I think because we're not trying to build some anti-men group for sure. So I think I've had really great sort of male sponsors and mentors actually in my career and in my life. So I think we just need to lobby more of them to be supportive of what we do. And I think a lot of them are. I think we just need to move them, towards this direction. And then I just encourage, I think female to think that they can really do everything. I mean, look at Lucy. Lucy was, in funds, and then she was advisory, and now she's running her own thing. So I think there's just a lot of fantastic women actually who I think are underestimating what they can do. And I think with the new Web3 world, I think we're just opening a lot more possibilities.
Yeah, and it really is about just leveling that playing field and making sure that the space is attractive to people of all backgrounds. I couldn't agree with you more, Vivien. There's some really amazing men in this space who are providing excellent opportunities for all. So I just want to say thank you so much, ladies. This has been a great discussion. I am feeling so buoyed by the optimism, and I definitely feel exactly the same way. I do really think that this particular space has some really fantastic women who are spearheading the future. So I'm also excited to see what happens. So thank you again, and we'll hand back to our MC, and looking forward to the next session. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.